Every smoker has a story. So before you tell them that smoking kills, I want you to know that something is already killing them. Good afternoon, Mrs. Elda. Introducing myself, my name is Faturaman Putra Prapastio from Tpapkb Class C, and here with today I'm going to be presenting on my midterm essay regarding the role of taxation in curbing cigarettes consumption. Now, the basis on the topic of my midterm essay came from the analysis on my background. I have found out that smoking has a profound negative consequences on society at large as well as individual levels. It also, from the health perspective, contributed to heart disease, lung cancer, and respiratory alignments. And in response to these negative consequences, all of the international organization and also governing bodies has actually made specific policies and also programs regarding how we could reduce smoke, how we could reduce cigarette consumption, such as a program that was made by the World Health Organization for the World No Tobacco Day from protecting children from tobacco industry interference, and also starting off with the national law on each country that has been implemented in the past to actually reduce smoking rate in our society level. Now, seeing from this perspective, why we're still seeing many victims of smoking, why we're still seeing victims of secondhand smokers, why this issue are still an ongoing issues as of today, because due to the fact that many people see this perspective as a phenomenon on these negative consequences itself. The reason is because there's two effects from my research. Effect as a smoking for self-pleasure and also smoking for the environment. Why self-pleasure? Because in here, cigarettes itself contain an addictive substances, which what we call as nicotine. And first thing first, people use smoking or people do smoking. It's actually for a pleasure for themselves as a leads to a coping mechanisms. Secondly, being the emotional escape and stress relief. Thirdly, is because it's actually for social and cultural influence. Why social and cultural influence? Because many people are actually doing smoke because of their peer pressure, such as a pressure that comes out from their family, their friends, their partners, their relatives, that actually encourage and incentivize them to do smoking. Because some nowadays, such as in Indonesia, the stigma itself, it's kind of like when you smoke, it means that you are being popular in a certain group. So that's basically a stigma that was actually leads to negative consequences on why people do smokes in nowadays. But there's also smoking for the environment. It means that people who actually smoke, they're not smoking for themselves only, but they're also smoking for the environment. Why? Because we see this whenever people smoke, they consume air pollutions. And when they consume air pollutions, we could see the phenomenon of climate change are actually truly increasing from time to time. Now, the cigarette butts itself, well, the cigarette butts that they're actually throwing at wherever it is, such as the smoking station or not smoking station, they are contributing to toxic waste. Why? Because later we will understand why the containment of this cigarette butts is actually non-biodegradable materials, and it does contribute to a long-term threats to our society where it could harm the agricultural and also biodiversity. We could see this also as a phenomenon of the secondhand smoker effect, where where if you're not smoking but you are nearby people who are smoking, you would get the effect on the secondhand smoker effect, where you could breathe the smoke that was actually inhabits in your areas. Now, moving on to the next slide. We now talk about the casualty and also impact of smoking. Now, as I've said before, the butts are non-biodegradable, and in scientific definition, we define this as a cellulose acetate filters, where it actually hard for them to actually decompose the biodegradable materials inside the acetate filters itself. Now, number two being the healthcare systems are heavily burdened by a major source of non-communicable disease like lung cancer, cardiovascular alignments, in which it does from time to time keeps on increasing because due to the fact people are lacking of awareness on why smoking is actually could create a negative consequences in our daily life. Now, point number two is because the cigarettes itself contain hazardous materials that are released to our environment when cigarettes butts are actually thrown away. Also, beyond smokers' secondhand smoke exposure, it also dramatically raises a non-smoker risk of respiratory infection. So the one who actually not smoke, but they actually breathe the smoke from other people, they are on the risk of getting respiratory infections. Now, not only to human itself, but also it does contribute to a negative consequences to our environment, such as the control of CO2 levels that is diminished by extensive deforestation for tobacco production itself, by degrading the natural habitats. Tobacco-driven deforestation also poses a threat to our biodiversity, such as the loss of forests, the habitats where animals actually living there was actually affected our society in also many kind of ways, in many kind of levels. Now, seeing from the environmental impact, there's also an adverse impact. There's two adverse impact as of this point. Number one being the people who are actually consuming this, they don't actually realize the fact that it does contribute to the cultivation on the deforestation and also eventually the loss of this biodiversity. And also number two, it necessitates the vast area of land which are frequently acquired by destroying the forest, where the tobacco productions is very damaging, especially in poorer nations with lesser land use restrictions, where they're economically, perhaps they are really dependent on land use restrictions. It's actually hard for them to cope, to make changes due to the fact that they have a financial problems there. And it's actually, from time to time, it will actually destroy their forest due to the tobacco production. Now, we could view this in an economical perspective as the negative externalities from the consumption and also production side. Why from the production side? Because the one who actually produces cigarettes, such as the cigarettes industry, people, they would actually, the chemical waste is actually not being managing they cannot manage this well properly, and therefore it would end up as a permanent waste that we as our environment we actually getting the impact of this environmental waste, such as the toxic harmful waste of the butts itself and also other types of waste that is actually being used in this chemical waste and also chemical production for the cigarettes itself. But in more large cases, we actually be the victims of this consumption of cigarettes by the negative externality of consumption. Why? It's because due to the fact that the marginal social benefit are less than the benefits enjoyed by private consumer. It means that as a private consumer, the socially benefit is actually less. So it means that you are the one who are only enjoying the benefit, but the other individual are actually being the victims on this benefit of cigarettes itself. It is illustrated by this diagram. We could see that MSB is more lower than MPB. It means that the private benefit is more higher in this case. Now, talking about the private costs, it means that people consume cigarettes itself. They don't actually notice that the one who actually affected is not themselves, but actually also the environment, being the individual who actually consume the smoke and becoming the secondhand smoker in this effect, as we covered the impacts and also factors before. Now, in economical perspective, governing action has been taken through the regulation of taxes, or given the substantial negative effects of smoking as one of the consequences for health, finances, and also environment. Now, why taxes? Because higher prices prevents consumption and lowering smoking rates. Raising cigarettes taxes has been shown to be effective and deterrent in previous year. Now, indirect taxes, why? Because when government are actually imposing taxes for cigarettes consumption, therefore people are not willing to buy cigarettes, and therefore the consumption of cigarettes will actually decrease from time to time. Now, cigarettes is also considered as demerit goods, so it means that whenever the prices of cigarettes increases, it does not becoming a factor for them to actually buy it. Now, there's three preventive actions. Number one being the governing laws. It means policy restrictive regimes for advertising, packaging, plain rules. Number two being the public awareness and campaigns, in which it is actually proven successful by the World Health Organization before. Number three is also the economic solutions, where taxes has been implemented to actually reduce and deter the cost of smoking. And it is actually the best strategies to lower the cigarettes usage. Now, a last quote from me: quitting smoking is not about giving up pleasure, it's about giving up poison. Thank you so much for hearing my presentation. I hope you have a great day.